and then, okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Flip the Switch. At Flip the Switch, we talk a lot about what it means to run a business in the 21st century, and I could not be more excited to dive into that topic with today's guest, Larry Kahn, founder and managing partner of Beechwood Capital, where he leads overall strategy, deal sourcing, and portfolio management. Beechwood invests in disruptive, growing consumer brands, working with some of your favorite companies that you know and love, such as Kosas, Bonza, Shani Darden, Once Upon a Farm, Lemon Perfect, and more. So welcome, Larry. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm coming to you from snowy Boston. For those on the West Coast, you gotta think you're lucky not to have the snow this early, but we're embracing it, and excited to be here and talk about all that's going on in consumer and in investing.
Wonderful. Yeah, we, for listeners, Larry and I have had a friendship for years. We've had an opportunity to work together on some clients, and, in the industry, you and your firm, I think, are some of the most well-revered people in the consumer space. You guys do such a fantastic job of finding really, really innovative brands and providing, I think, a different touch than a lot of other PEs out there, just in terms of your own past experience and how you're able to leverage that. So I think just to start, could you walk our listeners through your career journey, kind of connecting the dots from your early days as a partner at Ogilvy and Mather Worldwide, where you led major accounts like Sears, to the Holmes Group, where you helped grow the business pre and post acquisition, to where you are today as founder and managing partner at Beechwood?
Yeah, I'd love to. And it's funny. Like I think I have a pretty eclectic background, and I think that part of that is each part of that background really informs how we think about investments, and gives us a certain lens that I think is unique, or feels like some place that is familiar for some of the entrepreneurs that we engage with. And I think my initial journey really started in the advertising business, which is somewhat unique to walk from that to a kind of traditional investor or VC or PE investor. But I think it's a real key part of that foundational journey for me. And having grown up, it seemed with some amazing brands through Ogilvy and Mather, who's is an incredible firm. And I started on both the direct and digital side. And then moved into more traditional account side, and on brands like Sears, Ameritrade, American Express, IBM, et cetera. And so that kind of foundation, and a lot of, honestly, the training through that experience about thinking about brands from the kind of from the foundation up. What is the voice? What is the position of the brand? Why is it different? What is it trying to accomplish? I think that a lot of that foundation allows us to speak a little bit differently about the investments we're making. And I was lucky enough to have some great mentors in that experience, and move into a partner position where, some of that experience really allowed me to interact with CMOs, a much larger company, and understand how they're building their brands. I went back to business school at the Anderson School at UCLA, which was a good experience, really focusing more on entrepreneurship and finance. And then eventually kind of led to my family's business, which is another part of the kind of key foundation of what we do. My family had built a business called the Holmes Group, which is a manufacturer and marketer of brands like Crock-Pot, and Rival, and Holmes, and others in kind of home environment and kitchen appliances. At a lot of major, our business was really built at Walmart, Target, Bed Bath & Beyond, Costco, et cetera. And I rejoined my family's business, after business school, and really kind of, got my second MBA, and kind of building that business, and tackling, as a general operator, of building, particularly on the kitchen side of the business. And through that, we were able to kind of grow our business, and from, it had been a startup, and over time we led it to about an $800 million business and sold it to a strategic. And I think, a lot of those lessons in building the business, and we had a couple private equity partners along that journey. And we kind of saw, I had the experience of seeing the good and the bad from that, the real positives, from having, interacting on the board level with our private equity partners, to, their kind of input into the strategy of our business. And then also, how to how to engage from an entrepreneur side with that investment team, and they're good and they're bad, and where you have to be true to your vision, but also be malleable to the opportunity in front of you. And so I had that, and then I stayed on with the company. We got acquired by a company called Jarden, which was about a $5 billion business that had rolled up a number of brands like Sunbeam, Oster, Mr. Coffee, Coleman Camping, and it was a large business. And I spent a couple years with them after we sold our business, which was another good experience, just to see a larger business growth and have that experience of seeing brands continue to build brands at that level. I think from that entrepreneurial experience in general, like I gained a lot of it, what we take into deals today, which is, understanding really how, we sold to every grocery store and the major mass, especially retailers. And so I had a view of, how much it really takes to be successful and what you need, the steps you need to do to kind of approach and be successful in those channels. And I think further, just, understanding on a cadence on how to build, young brands. Like there's a real, kind of art to the right way where you see success or failure in different parts of your business on how to, continue to finance that, how to continue to build at the right cadence level to keep momentum. And we took a lot of lessons from that, and certainly a lot of network that we take into, kind of the investments we do today. So about 6 years ago, I started a platform that, I left Jarden and, really wanted to look at different ways, could engage entrepreneurial, in an entrepreneurial way with companies. And I thought that, starting to invest and kind of, utilize our experience in conjunction with great entrepreneurs would be the right way to kind of utilize our experience. So we set up this platform and started to invest, and created a thesis around, finding young brands that have the ability to disrupt large categories. And for us, that thesis really runs a lot on health and wellness trends and the way consumers are changing today, and that in what they put on their body and in their body and on their skin, and then focus really on that kind of one-to-one consumer relationship, whether that's at the retail level, whether that's through social media, and the ability for young brands to kind of have that dialogue in a way that really disrupt incumbent brands. And that's what we've been able to do in building Beechwood. And, we can talk about a lot of those steps and what we did, but that's kind of the background to where I am today.
Based on your experience in 2 MBAs, you look like you should be 90 years old. You look too young to have done all of that in your life.
Yeah, the second MBA was a figurative MBA, but I'm a little older than you, I think. So
that's what I say too about MBAs. Like, when I started my business, I had no formal business training, and I think it's doing it and being there and having no idea what you're doing and learning on the go, I think is a million times better than any course, because just, fighting the battles day to day as an entrepreneur, and making you battle tested is something you can't get in a classroom.
Yeah, and I think, look, I think the MBA experience was a good one for me in the sense of like it gave me some structure, and I pivoted a little bit from my marketing training to, have some more traditional finance training and, a little bit more, kind of that entrepreneurial finance training. And I think that's been helpful to me, but I obviously, like, getting in the trenches on the operating side informs a lot of what we do and where we engage. And the real uniqueness of where we invest, which I think is a little bit different, is that, we're investing in companies that have gained traction, have some proof of concept, but are a little too early for that that larger traditional growth round. And the steps that these companies take in this kind of 12 or to 36 month period where we first invest, are really the key to them scaling into the next level of their company. And that's where I think a lot of the entrepreneurial background that we have as a firm, and also our team, which I can talk about a little bit, is, extremely helpful for these companies to take that next step. And that's where I think we add value.
Yeah, I think so much of what gives you guys your secret sauce is the fact that you were an operator. It's often, like in the world of PR, some of the best publicists were journalists because they've been on the other side. And when you're in those shoes, you just have a specific eye of what to look for, that if you haven't done that, you just don't have that unique ability. Speaking of entrepreneurs, so, for anyone listening that knows what Expo West is, Larry is a celebrity at Expo West. I think everyone's probably hunting you down. But I'm assuming, whether it's a trade show on that level or now just in this COVID age virtually, I'm sure that you get hit up by a lot of brands and entrepreneurs, anything from, wanting advice to obviously investment. How do you decide who to invest in? What are some of the key qualities you look for in the entrepreneur themselves or the brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that we really focus on is alignment with the founder's vision. I think, we're minority investors, so our goal is to really support the vision of the founder and where they want to, where their initial idea and where they want to take the business. We're obviously going to try to help and enhance that, value over time, but we want to be 100% aligned because we're betting on, kind of that vision, number one. And I think team has to do, we're used to having small teams, that probably need to be enhanced and expanded, but we want to, really vibe with the team and understand what their strengths and weaknesses are, and as a core of our, of our investment thesis. I think beyond that, really, I think we want to see a differentiated product that has a place in the market and that has a place in a large addressable category. It's great to have a very unique product in a very small niche, and that might be successful. I think what we're looking for is, products like Bonza pasta that have an ability to, that have a uniqueness within a large category and ability to disrupt that category. So we're looking for that. And I think further is just, initial proof of concept. So even if that's one retailer, just showing that, not only can you sell in, but that you can sell through, and seeing that, we've got a lot of experience now in understanding what the trade and what success looks like. And so we want to see that initially. It doesn't need to be, again, we're talking about smaller companies, earlier stage companies, but we want to see that proof of concept with real numbers. And then I think lastly, we're looking for, we know that in these type of the stage business we're looking at, there's going to be a lot of good and there's going to be some, some challenges. And so we're looking for, a founder and a kind of story that is honest about that in the front. Like, I think, addressing what the opportunities are as important as what the successes have been. And I think we want to have that kind of dialogue where we're talking about that, because if you think about where we're investing, those opportunities or those, what we could call maybe shortfalls at the time are what we're looking to invest to attack. And I think just having that, open dialogue really gets us to a point where we can understand where that opportunity is and have a broader thesis for the investment.
Yeah, and then you mentioned Banza, which I think is just a great case study, and I'm a huge fan of them. We had the opportunity of working with the brand for years at Covet, and gosh, they just launched what looks like the best pizza in the world, so frozen pizza. So watch out, cauliflower, because chickpea crust is taking over the world. And I think with Bonza, you've been a board member for almost 4 years, and what started as just a very, I would say, even niche, small chickpea pasta brand, now is in any major grocery store. They've had incredible investors. I'm sure in a way you feel like a proud parent. So looking at Bonza and using that as just a case study, what was it in the beginning that was so compelling about them that you decided to take a bet?
Yeah, and it's funny. I wrote a LinkedIn post about it like last week when they launched pizza, because it was kind of, I was just thinking about that launch and thinking about our initial thesis on the business. And honestly, 100% of the credit goes to the Scott, Brian, and Mike Trullo, who really have driven that business, because they had a vision when we first we met them in 2016, and they just had a vision for the business that honestly has largely come to fruition, which was, they really felt that that many millennials and Gen Z shoppers had gone away from pasta. That even though that was, it was an ingrained behavior, maybe in in like your upbringing in childhood or
Yep.
part of the family, that many had walked away just because of the the lack of positive nutritionals in the category, and they felt that the better for you products that were out there were not up to par, just on the gluten-free side or the wheat pasta side, and they felt they could provide something better, and they did. And when we thought about the general thesis, it was about, you've got a better product that has better nutritionals, in this case, 2 times the protein, half the net carbs of a traditional product. You have a large addressable market. I mean, pasta is, a multi-billion-dollar category. and you have, an ability, and a trend basis for that consumers are really trying to buy against. And so you have an opportunity to really expand quickly. In this case, we invested, they were in about 2,500 doors, and they're in about, almost 14,000 today. And I think, pasta is a driver of that. They've also been able to take that formula into other categories, rice, mac and cheese, and then now pizza. And I think it's, again, they're different categories. They're all large addressable categories, but they have the same focus, which is, craft a better nutritional focused item that has a similar format that you're used to. You cook it the same way, you put it in, you put it in the oven the same way. It tastes very similar to traditional. And it's bringing people back to the category where they might have, walked away prior, and then I guess price it in the same range, right? I mean, it's going to be fair. There's a premium price point, but it's in a range that consumers are willing to pay, and you continue to do that. And I think they've done a great job. And I think just one point I'll lay out, if I'm not going too long here, is that the thing for them is that what they've done a great job is, and I give this as maybe a lesson for other brands going out there. They didn't go so broad in the beginning. They really zeroed in on what channels they thought they could be successful at. And Scott Rudolph and Brian Rudolph did a great job of creating case studies against that performance and that proof of concept. It wasn't Whole Foods in the beginning that really drove the business. It was some of the New York regional accounts that they really drove great case studies on promoting the product, having it off shelf, gaining trial, and then seeing a big lift on velocity. And they were just maniacal about, saying no to other accounts if they weren't ready, and creating that case study. And that was really an amazing, feat of discipline for them in the beginning. And they did a great job of proving, hey, if you partner with me to do this, we gain trial, then we'll be successful together. And they're one of the best at doing that. And I think that's something that, going so broad quickly takes a lot of resources, and you might not have the success. They were able to do that, just being focused and proving the case.
Yeah, it takes a lot of willpower. I think as an entrepreneur, it's very flattering when a lot of, people say expand more, or we want you in this store, but I've seen it myself growing too fast. And I mean, scaling in general, I think, is one of the hardest things to do as an entrepreneur, as a business. And growing a company and delivering a product from niche to mass is a challenge. And what do you think is a key recipe for scaling? You touched on it a little bit with Bonza, which is being maniacal and proving your thesis before expanding. But do you have any other tips for entrepreneurs on the perfect recipe for scaling at a sustainable pace? And I think about it as an entrepreneur, this term innovate or die, and we're living in such a fast-paced world that scaling, I think, is probably one of the most important ingredients to success. So would love your tips on what you've seen work, and maybe just as important, what you've seen not work.
Yeah, I think, a couple things. I definitely think you need to build the team, ahead to be able to, support the expansion that you're going to do, and be focused on that, and not just think that you can kind of, fly the plane and build it at the same time. It's really difficult to do. And so again, I think also being focused on, a lot of times when we engage with businesses, they are focused on one product line. They may have, 3 or 4 pieces of innovation coming, but they have to be focused in the beginning to prove that concept out before they need to innovate over time. They need to continue to expand the line. But I think initially proving that concept in a tight range of partners where they're really going to support you is most important to that. And then I think, this might sound a little self-serving, but I think raising more capital than you need, like in the beginning in particular, because the reality is this path is not going to be, up and to the right, like all the time. And like I always talk about the windy path. There's going to be, ups and downs to the, these type of businesses. There's nothing perfect here. There's anybody who says, like, bring any brand out to me that you think is the best brand in the world. And at this stage, there's going to be challenges, and forecasting's tough. So to have more capital on hand, and again, I'm not advocating, really diluting yourself as founders. I'm just saying, like, whatever you think you need a little bit more, and be able to make mistakes, and also raise the next round of capital when you don't need it, versus being out of cash and having to, trade some of the key points that you want, in an investor or a deal that you make at that point. So, I think those things, just being focused, being in tune to your partners and getting the right partners, and doing a little bit less on the distribution side to prove what you have the team, and then have enough capital to be able to support that over time.
That's great feedback. And, speaking of capital, obviously you provide capital to brands, but I know you provide a lot more than that. And a lot of it is guidance, and been there, done that. And, still being in the thick of COVID, what was it like for you and your portfolio companies, at the height of the pandemic? Were you on the phone with them every day? Were you in the trenches with them? I'm sure there's a fine balance of helping, but also, letting the entrepreneurs make their own decisions too. Was that recent period like something you've never experienced?
I mean, I think it was, we were pretty, I guess we were lucky because we had a lot of our brands were well capitalized and well positioned to kind of work through the period. I mean, I think that we try to say, like, we want to kind of be invisible until you need us, and then we're right there next to you. So I think in some cases during that period, kind of in March and April, we wanted to be right there and be helpful. I think, like every brand, every probably brand in this, in these spaces that we're talking about, food and beverage, beauty, we're dealing with different things. There were some positives on the food and beverage side in regard to velocity. There was, obviously negative on the beauty side because there was a lot of store closures, particularly Sephora and Ulta. And so, I think each brand was a little bit different, but I think any brand in that time was looking at their budget, right, and saying, what do I need to do to be safe about what this year looks like? What do we need to do to conserve, OpEx, and be smart about where we promote during this time. And so we kind of had those conversations. Every deal is a little bit different in terms of the entrepreneur and how, what they need. And we just try to provide, help and guidance. Our team, in some cases, would jump in and help model, some thoughts. And in other cases, we're, just listening at the board level and providing some advice or providing some resources around, everyone, everything from, advice on PPP to, what was going on at the retail level, and how to kind of, be smart about where you were seeing sales and where you were seeing gaps. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a tough period. I think we were lucky in that sense, but I think you got to be prepared in all these deals to be able to support in any way. And, I think hopefully we won't have to personally all go through that type of fire drill, in the future.
Yeah.
I certainly think this winter is going to be interesting in the same context. And the good brands and those hopefully in our, a lot of our portfolio, are thinking through that again of what they need to do if there's closures and other things. And, I think that goes down to preparedness.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there was a little insulation for, you and me in terms of being in the health and wellness industry. And I remember from, when stores are closing, to brands thinking that they weren't going to make it, to being sold out the next day, to panic buying, and you jumped the question there, which is, leading into what could be another spike. I'm sure the contingency plans are getting polished again, just in case, but hopefully there's been enough fire drills to prep some of your clients.
Yeah, I mean, the hope is that, I think if you've gone through it once, you've kind of made some adjustments to what you're thinking. But
yeah,
I think the traffic at retail is what everyone's concerned with, right? And what that's going to do. And I think the positive on some of this, and to spin it like, there's not obviously positive in this period for a lot of
sure.
things. I think on the business side, like, having many of our brands really dig deeper on D2C and thinking about, ways they can, interact directly with the consumer, and polishing that part of their plan has been a major positive for a lot of our brands, and that will continue to drive and, be a viable avenue for sales over time. And I think, that sharpening of that piece of the tool will be important for all of our brands.
Yeah. A question for you. We're going to go into successes because there's a lot of successes, but I think as an entrepreneur, lots of times these podcasts or the books you read only talk about successes. But I think for me, at least in particular, where I've grown the most is from failures. And you've had the unique opportunity in your 3, 4, 5, 6 careers you've had thus far now, obviously at Beechwood, to see so many brands grow and many succeed, but I'm sure fail too. And not in your portfolio in particular, but just being in this industry and observing. And do you have an idea or a thought on a single common denominator that you've seen across the board that leads to failure? And I know that's kind of a dystopic question, but I think it's important because so much of what we talk about is success. But again, I think there's so much that can be learned in failures.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, it's hard to like dial it down to one single point, because I think there's always, and this is the risk we're investing in an early stage. There is a significant risk of failure. It's very hard to be successful in these categories. You have to do a lot of things right. I think the common denominator that I see a lot is lack of planning on capital. And I think that, honestly, a lot of companies have been spoiled in this period of being able to have a very frothy, venture and PE market that's supporting a lot of these brands, sometimes on like a 12-month cycle. And that's just, for us, that's a very, very dangerous game to play sometimes, because I think on a positive and negative side, if you grow very quickly, you may be in a position where you don't have enough capital to support that growth. If things go wrong, obviously your runway is going to be a little shorter, and it's making causing you to make some decisions you might not want to make. And so I just think that's, I think a lot of success has to do with momentum and, momentum of your rounds. And if you can continue that positive momentum, there's a lot of suitors, there's a lot of positive, kind of energy around that financing. When it becomes drawn out and you start to get, you start to have to make decisions to conserve capital, you're probably making the wrong decisions for the long-term growth of the business. And when you do that, there's a danger there. And I've seen that a lot, just shorter runways, not enough capital, and then you're forced to make decisions that aren't maybe the best decision for the business, which ultimately for us is like in our own business, the same thing. It's like, if you do what's best for the business all the time, you're going to be, 95% of the time, you're going to be successful in raising that bar. When you don't make good decisions, when you make decisions that are for the short term, a lot of times it's going to hurt you in the business over that, what you're going to do well to be successful in the future.
Yeah, momentum is so important. I think so much of what I read about and talk to entrepreneurs is it's skill set, but it's also a little bit of luck, right time, right place. I mean, it's, when you look at specifically at like the natural foods industry, it's being not too late to the trends. I mean, so much of it, I think, is a game of timing. And in looking at your portfolio, I mean, you have a portfolio that's chock full of leading trends in terms, whether it's in skincare, whether it's in baby food. So, one brand in particular, which I think is more of a recent investment, was Lemon Perfect. And the healthy beverage space is, I feel, so saturated at this moment everywhere you go. I remember, going to Whole Foods in 2012 and seeing, one cold pressed juice. I don't even know if there was a kombucha, maybe an old school kombucha. And now you go and you look and it's like a million beverages. So what in looking at Lemon Perfect drew you to the brand?
Yeah, I think Lemon Perfect is a little bit different because it's got a unique nutritional set as well, at kind of a 5-calorie, 0 sugar, refreshing hydration beverage that kind of sits in the very fast growing enhanced water set. So consumers are trying to find low sugar, certainly low carb solutions to everyday hydration. And so that set has grown with a number of different players, including something like, we could go back to the vitamin water story, to Core, to Buy, et cetera. And I think consumers are looking for those type of new solutions. I think Lemon Perfect is tackling that. Shelf-stable beverage, so you're not, you don't have to fight the cooler battle, which is very difficult for some brands. Being able to ship in a little bit more convenient way and be able to case stack, and ship through Amazon in a case format. And being at kind of a $1.99 price point, it hits a lot of really, really optimal levers for growth. It also is an incredibly great tasting and refreshing beverage that is somewhat unique because it's got, again, 5 calories and 0 sugar. And so I think it's kind of the right time, right trend right now. A lot of success through its initial distribution. Great founder, Yanni Hufnagel, who's like one of the most energetic and one of the, really unique guy, has been recognized in the industry, and a great VP of sales with Mike Sharman, who, built Vitamin Water, Vita Coco, Kind, and Essentia, and now was at Lemon Perfect. So we just saw a really nice, group there that we think, we had a chance to invest early, and that has an opportunity to really grow.
That brings up a good question. What do you think is more important if you had gun to your head, team or product?
That's a tough choice. I probably say team, just because, I think we need both of those things to make an investment. But I think at the end of the day, team is what's going to bring you there. And yeah. I think if you don't have team, like we always, we have certain situations where we identify great product, and if we don't have the fit, and again, it's not them, it's not, you know what I mean? It's yeah. Just fit. And if we don't have that fit with team, and we don't get there on the investment. Yeah. So I think you got to have both to really make it happen. But if you had a gun to your head, I'd say team is the most important.
I agree. For the record, I say 51% team, 49% product. So on the topic of beverages, I want to chat Flying Embers for a second. So the summer of 2019, we saw White Claw was king, from music videos to, your neighbor. White Claw was everywhere. And this past summer, I think it's clear to say that hard kombucha really took over. You walk down the aisle of any grocery store and you see June Shine and Boochcraft and Flying Embers and some smaller names. Had you been wanting to enter the hard kombucha space? Was it a category you had your eye on, and then you try to pick who you thought would be the best? Or, talk me through about the process of when you enter a new category like that. Is it the category that draws you in? Is it the brand that draws you in? What's that process like?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Yeah, we actually we were looking in the category because we felt that, again, and this is a new investment for us. We invested about a year ago, and the thing for us is we hadn't made an alcoholic beverage investment prior, so it was something that we were contemplating for a little while. I think our themes are pretty consistent right across categories. Is like looking for a better for you solution that is resonating with consumers, with millennial and Gen Z consumers. And honestly comes from a little personal experience too, because I like to, have a drink on occasion. And it's like, I felt like, why am I addressing everything else from a better for you perspective in what I'm doing, or a better nutritional perspective, and I'm not doing that with how I drink. I mean, and so what we started to do is look in the marketplace. Had met Bill before. He had built Kavita prior, and we've had a little experience. We also had an investment with Revive, which we sold to JAB, which the company was sold to JAB, and a great founder there with Sean, and a great partnership. And we learned a little bit enough, to be dangerous in the kombucha side. And we just felt like this, what Bill's vision for Flying Embers really was to create a platform around healthy alcohol. And so we just bought into that. We thought that, number one is experience in understanding how to brew from Kavita was, really second to none. His understanding of the channels of where to go, and the team that he built early was very unique. And most importantly, I think the product is absolutely fantastic. It's just a light, refreshing, again, 0 sugar, 0 carb, option for you as you think about what you're going to pick up. And, more so for them, they had a vision, and this is all out there, that they wanted to create a platform, not just hard kombucha, but also hard seltzer. So they have a 0 sugar, 0 carb, vitamins and antioxidant probiotic seltzer that I think tastes better than, White Claw or Truly, and yet provides these benefits. And so, we just really bought into Bill's vision, and what he was doing. And I'm like more excited than ever. Like a year later, I'm super excited. And honestly, like, some of what we do is we're product heads, right? So it's anecdotal. You don't want to just be subjective, but I think anyone that I introduce the product to, it becomes, a convert and a raving fan for the product. And I think, we'll continue to see this category get bigger at
Yeah.
retail.
This category, it's, I think you and I both have somewhat of the unique opportunity to see things kind of from a mile away, because we start to observe these trends. And this healthy alcohol space is a category I know I've had my eyes on for a while. And not only is there healthy alcohol like the Flying Embers, but now there's this boom of the non-alcoholic alcohol space, like the Monday gins and the seedlips. And then there's the THC microdose infused alcohol space, like the cans. Do you guys have any interest? Actually, what are your thoughts on the non-alcoholic alcohol space? Is that a category?
Yeah, we're also looking there. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. We're also looking there. I think that's part of the same thesis. And we haven't made an investment in the space, but we've been talking to a number of brands and would love to. Again, it comes from, like I said, Bill Moses. When we met him, he had that vision. I think it's been part of our thesis. I think there is a fit for both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, options in this space. And there's a number of brands that have done well, like Athletic or like Partake, who, I think have hit it on beer, and then others that you mentioned who hit it on spirits. And I think there's a real opportunity there, and I think we'll continue to look. It's just, they're large categories. There's definitely a movement, right? If you look at, every January and I guess July, right? There's
dry,
and I think people are trending to be healthy. They want lighter options, right? They want things that make them, to give them the buzz and make them feel good at the same time. And I think that there's an ability to do that. And I think the large strategics are looking, right, to find that that next generation of brands that are fit into their distribution. And so the downside to this is it takes a lot of capital, right? And these are highly marketing driven categories, and you have to have the right product and the right brew. And so I think there'll be a few winners, and hopefully we're lucky enough to bet on the right vision. And I think we have with the one we have, and hopefully others.
Great. So turning gears a little bit, moving less from product and more to back to the business a little bit. I am sure that you have heard hundreds, maybe thousands of funding pitches. And I'm sure everything from pitch slams to cold emails to, will you do my buddy a favor and take a 30-minute call? What do you think are the ingredients of a successful pitch? And, are there any times in looking back at your career where it was like a mic drop, or someone pitched you and you were like, I need this, I want this? And if so, what were some of those components in that conversation?
Yeah, I think just honestly knowing your business. I mean, I think, we talked about some of the elements that really, get us excited about what's there: team, market opportunity, differentiated product, initial success, right? Initial proof of concept. Those things are there. I think the people that we interact with, or when someone pitches us, when they have those elements, they also really are honest and identify the opportunities and lay down, hey, here are my challenges. This is where I see, this is why I need help. This is where where I'm going. I think those are the points where, and we see a founder who really knows his or her business, like really identifies, metrics that make sense, and also identify, metrics that are negative. I think that when we have that type of honest conversation, then that gets us really engaged. And, obviously we get pitches a lot of different ways. I mean, we get introduced, we get cold. We get cold calls, we get introductions through our founder network, for deal, for within our portfolio. I don't know that there's like a lot of times, we probably engage when it's maybe a year or a year and a half before we might be the right time, because again, all this stuff it's like timing, it's the right, it's the right elements of the raise that all come together. And so, something like Kosas, where I met Sheena Montanus, who's like an incredible founder there. And, we were talking for about a year and a half before kind of the investment came together, and we were hopefully, able to give her, we gave her some introductions to network, and some thought process to her raise prior to where we came in. and sometimes that relationship really cements, the future. And a lot of times, hopefully we can add value. We can get to know founders. They can get to know, more importantly, they can get to know us, like in a way that they know,
Yeah.
because business, like we want to be accretive to them. And so I think those are the type of conversations and the type of cadence that typically happen when it all comes together.
So how much of your job is like the show Shark Tank?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the best part of my job. It's probably not, I probably, for me personally, we have a great team behind us who do, and some great folks who have experience, like, traditional PE experience, have strategic experience at the M&A side. And so they, sometimes do a lot of the crunching behind the scenes and get, and I'm sometimes able to get in front of entrepreneurs a lot, as our whole team will over time. But I probably spend 50% of my time in front of entrepreneurs, and then another 25% with the portfolio, and then the remaining 25% on new opportunities. But I can tell you that the best part of my job is to hear and see the innovation, whether it's a fit for us or not. I mean, how can you not be juiced up, like getting in front of entrepreneurs who are crafting the next billion-dollar brand, who are crafting products like that are going to be staple items over time. It's an incredible thing. You talked about Expo West. Like, that's the best part. I mean, walking Expo West and being able to see some of the innovation and the energy on the floor. I missed it this year because it's, that's, if you don't get excited about that in our industry, I mean, it's not for you. It's just, it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, I try to, my mom, it's so funny. Doesn't really understand my job still. And so a product will be like on sale at Whole Foods, and she'll take a picture. She'll be like, "Great job, honey, on the BOGO." I'm like, "Mom, I have nothing to do with buy one, get one free." Or I try to explain to her about Expo West, and they said it's like the Oscars and the Emmys and the Tonys coming together. And I think our industry really missed that this year, because beyond seeing trends, it's a time where everyone can get together. And I think we're trying to do our best in this virtual world, but it certainly is not the same.
Well, if you like, I mean, my kids, and I have a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old, and we spend our time in Whole Foods and other stores walking around trying to discover, and that's, it's a really fun kind of thing. If you get excited about that, you know what I mean? It's again, being able to, some of this is subjective, but it is, engaging right at the product level, and how fun is it? How inspiring and how exciting is it to see a new product hit the shelf and see that growth? It's really rewarding. I mean, we're 1/10 of, 100th of the story than the entrepreneurs who are actually doing it.
To know all the blood, sweat, and tears that it took. So switching topics a little bit, I think this year has certainly put so many topics that were previously either taboo or not top of mind, full frontal for entrepreneurs. Everything we've seen, from racial injustices to health concerns. And I know right now ethics is a top of mind for consumers and large companies. And we recently saw JP Morgan Chase pledge $30 billion to fight the racial wealth gap. So question for you, because it's certainly a question that, we're all asking ourselves, and I think in the PR world and in the digital marketing world, is, how do you kind of switch maybe your perception that you didn't even know was a perception? So for instance, when you look at investments, are you being more methodical or thoughtful about the ethics of the company, or the diversity of the entrepreneurs, or your personal values? Has there been any shift in the last year that the current events have put you and your team in?
I think we always have, I think there's obviously been a focus, but I think we've always had that kind of focus for what we do, in the sense of, I think half of our investments are with female entrepreneurs, or close to that, and that's, I think some of that is the categories that we're in. And I think that we tend to just look for the best opportunities and the best people, and there's no lens on where that falls. But I think that, it's important to try to, think through and make sure that there's, an openness and the right type of focus to make sure that there's diversity, in everything that we do. I think we're thinking about it, on our team level, right? We're thinking about it in the course of what we're doing with our brands. I think our brands are really thinking about it. I mean, so they're more open to how they're addressing, every type of consumer and how they present, advertising and other elements of the brand. So I think we just, we want to continue to think through it. I think ethically, again, we really live by the principle of to try to do what's best for the business. And when you do what's best for the business, that's an ethical choice, that is going to be, positive. And, there's a lot, I mean, look, every deal isn't isn't, like I said, smooth. So you always have, some choices to make on what's going to be right or wrong. And I think we just try to guide, with the sense of doing what's right. And from there, I think you make the right choices, in any case.
Yeah, I agree. And I think 2020 will, if you haven't changed at all as an entrepreneur after everything you've been through 2020, I think you've been sleeping on the job, because even the small changes, I think, inspire huge impact as we look forward. So this is a personal question that I like to ask people I admire. What single event do you think has had the largest impact on your career?
Yeah. I'm going to try, I probably had longer answers than you want. I'll try to, it might not be a single, I'll put a couple together because I think it's a thematic, but, listen, I grew up watching my father be, kind of start a business and be an entrepreneur when I was, when I was younger, like in my high school years, and seeing that build. I think I just learned a lot about, what it takes to build something. And, I think I saw some unique lessons on sacrifice, on really, on dedication, on, just being able to, have the ups and downs and continue to believe in a vision. And seeing that for me was, is a very defining moment, over time on what I wanted to do and what was, maybe the future for me. And I kind of I know how hard it is. So that's kind of what we take into what we do every day. I think, growing up, I played a lot of sports, and I played college football. And I think that similar kind of mindset and work ethic that, is kind of ingrained in you that, continuous improvement and thinking through how as a team you can become better, is something that I think, any athlete or, and a lot of people take into what they do every day, and that competitiveness, but in a way that benefits the team. And I think, some of those experiences kind of define where I go. And then third, growing up early in my career, and particularly at Ogilvy, I just had some great mentors that I didn't, that just went above and beyond for me. And that, took me aside, gave me opportunities that maybe I wasn't ready for, but they pushed me into the pool a little bit. And I think that those mentors mean a lot when you're a younger, when you're younger in your career, and they shape a lot of how, you interact with others, and also, provide and delegate and build a team yourself. And so I think those three combination of things, maybe out of order in a way I gave you, were kind of defining, kind of moments that really affect, my career in terms of, how I think about what it takes to be successful, how you dedicate yourself and build it, and kind of help build a team, and how to be a mentor and build others up within that team, to move forward as a better unit. And so that's kind of
those were great tips. I agree with all of those, especially the mentorship piece. And I did not know you played college football. Where did you play college football at?
Yeah, I played at Lehigh University.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so long time ago. But I think sports are, a really, I think they're a really good basis for how you think about and how you compete and work ethic, et cetera. And how can you, what's better than building and winning as a team. I think that's,
Yeah.
a lot to take forward.
It's a good foundational DNA for entrepreneurship. So last question for you, Larry. Here at Power, we are all about paying it forward with knowledge. So what would be your advice that you have for someone who's started a company, obviously, food, beverage, beauty, CPG company, and dreams of one day partnering with you and your team at Beechwood?
I think really just, again, refining your vision, being very, very focused on what you're trying to accomplish and where, and, being mindful of that pitch being, very succinct in terms of where you see the opportunity and where you are right now and where you need to go. I think, it always helps to get a warm intro sometimes, because, we have all sorts of times we interact on a cold pitch, but it's always nice to get someone who puts you into a position where, you're warm. And then lastly, just be honest about the opportunity. Like every deal we see, and by the way, we're not worried about the slickest decks or like, the most amazing presentation. I don't know how to do any animation. I literally don't do animations anymore. I don't remember. But like more, be honest, like here's what's working, here's where the opportunity is. And if that opportunity is going to come through, there's going to be, there has to be a fit on both sides, and that there's going to be, a mind share and an opportunity, not because everything's going right, but because of what you're building and what the path can be. And so I think that's how the advice I would give, to entrepreneurs approaching us, and be yourself, and hopefully, we're lucky enough to find a fit with a unique opportunity.
Well, thank you so much. Beyond being an amazing investor, you're also just a great human, and I know from working with you, you genuinely care about all the people and brands you work with, which is an amazing trait. So we will continue to keep your portfolio companies busy at Ulta and Sephora and Whole Foods and Erewhon, and we're excited to see what Beechwood has in store for 2021.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really fun, and these are all great topics, I think, that are fun to talk about, and love what you do, and thanks for supporting our brands over time. Really appreciate you having me.
Thank you. Stay warm.
All right. See ya.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much, Larry. Bye-bye.